I want to frame this in questions for you. So I want to get into 3 questions that you should be asking yourself to assess whether or not you're really ready to change. So we'll use this young lady as an example from Atlanta. She realized, as she started her weight loss journey, that her issue with food was emotional. Okay. Now that she knows the real problem, now she has 3 questions that she should be asking herself to assess whether or not she's ready to do the work it takes to get over her emotional eating problem. Y'all following me? Okay, so here's the 3 questions to assess your readiness for change. Let's get into the first one.
Optimal health is not a privilege, it's a right. However, unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of health challenges today can be attributed to lifestyle. This includes our physical activity, the quality of our relationships, stress, purpose and fulfillment, and of course, our diet. But what if there was an alternative? What if we could prevent and combat these health challenges with lifestyle changes before pills and procedures? You are listening to the Plant Protocol podcast with yours truly, plant-based health and business coach, and now the forever voice in your head, Lisa A. Smith. It's time to come get this health.
This is how to tell if you're really ready for change. My proven framework for assessing readiness for all the things that's required for you to truly make change. I've been coaching, speaking, teaching, helping individuals with transformation for quite some time. And as a result, I've had individuals who say they want to change and they come in and they do what's required and we get the result. We get the change they're looking for. And then I've had individuals who say they want to change and they come in and we don't get the result. And I've been able to compile what I believe to be a pretty comprehensive list of what's required to change. And when I say comprehensive, it doesn't take much, right? The list is pretty short, but this is based on kind of my own unintentional social experiment. The reason I want to talk to you guys today about change is because I know many of you who listen to me, you have some significant desires of your heart. I know you have desires when it comes to your personal health. I know you have desires when it comes to your contribution to society. I know you have desires when it comes to your relationships and your personal development. A lot of you guys listen to me for the personal development piece, right? That mindset piece, better understanding how to think. And then I know a lot of you have desires when it comes to business. A lot of you guys listen to me because of the business nuggets, which, by the way, we're starting a new segment today. So make sure you stick around. I'm going to introduce a new segment all about business at the end of today's episode and tell you guys a new personal goal of mine. And I think it's going to be fun for us to walk this journey together. So how to tell if you're really ready for change, my proven framework. I want to break it down for you guys. So first things first, I want you guys to think of a goal that you currently have. I want you guys to think of your goal in your health, your goal in business, your goal in your profession or your 9 to 5. I want you to think of a relationship goal. I want you to think of a financial goal. I want you to think of a spiritual personal development goal. So I think this episode today will be really effective if you hone in and choose one North Star. The framework that I'm going to teach you really quickly can be applied to any and all goals, but I think it will be super beneficial for you guys if you think of one specific goal that you have. And I would recommend leaning towards focusing on the bucket in your life that's the lowest. So right now is the biggest priority for you, your health. Right now is the biggest priority for you, your relationship. Right now is the biggest priority for you, your finances. It's the biggest priority for you, healing. What is the biggest priority for you? Okay. Because as I go through these 4 things, I want you to be able to think of something specific for yourself, as opposed to taking generic notes and listening in general. I want you to listen with some level of specificity today. So I think that would be very helpful. So if you got a goal in mind and we can start the framework, got it. Like I'm going to focus on one thing, Lisa. Maybe it's me, elevating and growing in my 9 to 5. Maybe it is me kicking off my business. Maybe it is me losing weight or getting off a medication. Maybe it is making a hard decision in one of my relationships. Maybe it's me healing from some stuff. Okay, got it. Thank you guys. All right. So we have a specific goal in mind. So let's get into it. Okay, you have a goal, but are you really ready for change? Here's the facts. Goals are easy, change is hard. Goals are easy, change is hard. So we know that to be true all from life experience, right? Goals is easy. It's easy to set a goal, but change can be harder. So in order to assess whether or not you're really ready for change, in order to achieve the goal that you now have in mind, the first thing we need is awareness of a problem. Now, the reason I'm acknowledging a problem is because if you have a goal and you have found that you have been inconsistent, if you have found that you have not showed up consistently doing the work that's required to get the goal, I need you to acknowledge the fact that there's a problem, right? Like we'll take health and use health as an example. A lot of people in my audience have a weight loss goal. Very, very common for a lot of my listeners. They have a weight loss goal. And most people, I would imagine, by the time they're listening to me and by the time they're searching for alternatives, they've already tried many things to lose the weight, right? But by the time they get here, they're like, I've been, yo-yoing back and forth, or I'll lose a little bit, gain it back, lose a little bit, gain it back. And they always, think that it has something to do with them, something they're doing wrong. I'm not consistent. I'm not disciplined. It's too hard. I don't have time, whatever it is, right? So the first thing I need you to do in order for the rest of these steps to make sense is the goal that you've identified. And if it's been extremely difficult for you to achieve that goal, the first thing I need you to do is to be aware that there's a problem. And I need you to acknowledge that there's a problem, right? We need to acknowledge that something is not going as planned here. Okay. So let me explain what I mean by this. And I'm going to use an example from Atlanta this weekend. And number one is kind of twofold. We need to acknowledge that there's a problem, but then we need to acknowledge the right problem. So if you have a goal, you haven't been able to get to it, not only do we need to acknowledge there's a problem, we need to acknowledge the right problem. So this past weekend, I was in Atlanta and a young lady came up to me. I was at a conference and a young lady came up to me and she said, "Are you Lisa Smith from?" Yeah, I'm like, "That's me. Yep, the one and only, 'tis I." Right? Super, super, super sweet young lady. And she said, "Okay, I'm doing your challenge. I'm going to do your 30-day challenge. And I've been listening to you." And she said, "I want to lose. I'm trying to lose." I think she said 15 or 16 pounds. And she said, "So I've started changing the way I eat." And she said, "And I'm halfway there. I've lost 7 pounds." And so I got excited. She got excited. I'm like, "Congratulations. That's a big deal." I was like, "Oh, we're definitely going to get you to the finish line at our next 30-day vegan challenge." And she said, "But I realize," now this is the part, y'all. She said, "I realize that my issue with food is emotional." I said, this is a good revelation. She said, "I realized that my issue with food is emotional." Now, prior to her really starting to pay attention as she, jumped on this weight loss journey, she may have thought that her issue was just, "Oh, I'm just not consistent," or "I just don't have enough time," or "it just costs too much," or whatever it is. That's a lot of the things that I hear from people when it comes to getting healthy. But when she started to actually do the work, eating better, moving, all the things we need to do to lose weight, drinking water, she realized as she became keenly aware of her relationship with food, that it wasn't that she necessarily had a consistency or discipline issue or whatever she might have categorized the problem as before. She told me this weekend that her issue is emotional. Essentially, she's an emotional eater, right? Now, this is very important because some of you are very similar, where you have goals, let's say in your finances, and you think it's a discipline issue. Why can't I just save money consistently? Or why can't I invest consistently? Or why don't I take bigger chances? And you think your issue with money is, but the true issue is maybe it's emotional, right? You're an emotional spender. And so you think the problem is just a character flaw, when the truth is the real problem is that there's something that needs to be dealt with on the emotional front. So step one in assessing your readiness for change is, I have this goal. I haven't been able to accomplish this goal. But first things first, I need to acknowledge that there's a problem, but I have to acknowledge the right problem. Because if we misinterpret the problem, we don't solve it correctly. Because if we think we have a consistency or discipline issue, all we're going to try and do is strong our way to the result. Because we're just like, I got to buckle down. I got to focus. I just got to do it. I hear that from my students all the time. I'm like, well, what do you think you need? I just got to do it. I'm like, no, that can't be it. Because we've been trying to solve this problem for 5 years. That can't be it. The solution cannot be just do it. It's something bigger in the way. Let's think deeper about this. Let's assess this a little more, right? And so for her, she realized, oh, it was emotional. And there's some stuff that I need to deal with. And so what's the real problem? Okay. So that's step one. What's the real problem? Now that we have that, let's get into the three. I want to frame this in questions for you. So I want to get into 3 questions that you should be asking yourself to assess whether or not you're really ready to change. So we'll use this young lady as an example from Atlanta. She realized, as she started her weight loss journey, that her issue with food was emotional. Okay. Now that she knows the real problem, now she has 3 questions that she should be asking herself to assess whether or not she's ready to do the work it takes to get over her emotional eating problem. Y'all following me? Okay. So here's the 3 questions to assess your readiness for change. Let's get into the first one. And the first one has to do with desire. Okay. When you have an issue or a goal that you're trying to accomplish and you recognize there's a problem standing in your way, the first question you have to answer is, what do you want? Now, this might sound real simple and real basic, but let me tell you the thing that people focus on instead that prevents them from being successful. Instead of focusing on what do you want, what's your true desire, the thing they tend to focus on is what they don't want. So oftentimes when I'm working with clients in a coaching capacity, whether it be business coaching or health coaching or personal development coaching, surprisingly, very rarely do they know what they want. What they know for sure is what they don't want. And let me tell you why this is. When you are in pain makes it really easy to know what you don't want, right? Like if you're in an unhealthy relationship or unhealthy marriage, it's very easy to be like, I don't want anybody who works all the time. I don't want anybody who I don't want anybody who does this and does that. Like, it's very easy because you're in pain. Like, I don't want this. Like, if it's your health, you're like, I don't want to go in a dressing room and not be able to fit clothes. It's very easy to know what you don't want when you're in pain. Like, I don't want these stomach issues anymore. Like, I don't want to have to live paycheck to paycheck and count every single dollar for everything, right? It's very easy to identify what you don't want. Pain makes it easy to know what we don't want. It also makes it easy to focus on what we don't want. However, in order to move the needle, we have to move it in a direction. And you don't know what direction to move the needle in if you haven't identified what you want, right? So for example, I'm working with a client right now and I'm working with her in the personal development space. And she's like, I'm sick of feeling like I don't have a purpose. I'm sick of feeling like I'm not doing meaningful work, right? So all she knows is she doesn't like the feeling of not feeling meaningful and purposeful in her life. She has a really good job. She's done a lot for herself. She's, in her life, financial freedom, good health, all these things. And she's like, but I don't feel like I'm making a difference. I'm missing that connection to something meaningful. And so we were talking about that. And I asked her, what do you want? Like, I'm very clear on what you don't want, which is the present circumstance. But what do you want? And we had to literally go back and forth for a bit for her to figure that out. And when I say, what do you want, guys, I'm not talking about some generic, I just want to be happy. I just, want to feel good. I just want to be healthy. I'm not talking about that. I mean, like, very specific. Like, for example, when it comes to my finances, I write the vision every day, right? God told us to write it and make it plain. So every day I write my vision for about 5 different areas of my life. And it is in black and white exactly what I want, like very, very clear. So that way, when I get it, I'll know. But that way, I also know I have a North Star. But here's where it gets good. Not only am I acknowledging what I want, I then have to assess, is what I'm saying that I want, is it what I truly want, or is it just what I think is possible? So when it comes to finances, for example, one thing that I could say that would sound good and not too hard would be, I want financial freedom, right? A lot of us can say that. Some of us already have it. We desire it. But here's where it get good. If I had to define financial freedom, what does that mean? Let's talk net worth. So one of the visions that I write every day to make plain is, I have a net worth of $10 million or more and $0 in consumer debt. Very plain. A net worth of $10 million or more and $0 in consumer debt. Now, somebody else's financial freedom might be, I have a net worth of $500,000. I can live very good off of this. It doesn't take much for me. Those are two different financial freedoms. And somebody else might say, well, I'll be good with six figures, or I'll just be good to be able to pay my bills and go on 1 or 2 vacations a year and chill out. And that's good enough for me. And then I would say, is that what you really want, or are you just naming that because it's what you think is possible? So we have to be very careful with saying what we want based on what we think is within our will to do. And so I made sure that I actually identify what I truly wanted, as opposed to only saying something that seems like, here's what we go wrong with this first question. When we're thinking about what we want, our brains naturally, and this is the thing you got to stop your brain from doing, our brains naturally in the moment try to figure out how to do it, how it's going to be possible. How can we make it happen? So my challenge for you on number 1, as you're assessing your readiness for change and you're asking yourself, what do I really want in this area? You've identified your goal. What do I really want? And as specific as possible, I'm going to challenge you to immediately shut it down when your brain tries to figure out how to do it. Because when you try to figure out the how, that is essentially where your dream dies. Your true dream dies. Because if you're a big dreamer like me, or if you challenge yourself to dream big and you can't figure out how that's going to happen, you're going to decide immediately that it's probably not possible and I should be more realistic in my wants. I should be more reasonable in my ask. I challenge you to be unreasonable in your ask. If what you're putting down is not what you really want, but only what you think is possible, then you're not operating in an honest space. So I challenge you, as you assess your readiness for change, the first thing we got to make sure is that we are being honest about what we really want. We're not trying to practice this extraordinary humility that says we should play small. We're not trying to practice this, what we consider to be honorable. I don't need that much. I'll just be happy with. I'll be okay. Like, no. If you want that man to have all the things, if you want that woman to have all the things, like, make the whole list. Don't be like, well, I would love, him to have X, but if he's just this, I'll just settle. Like, it'll be good enough. Right? No. Ask for the whole kit and caboodle. Somebody put kit and caboodle in the chat. Okay. So that's number 1. Assessing your readiness is, do you know what you want? And if you don't know what you want, we can't do anything else past that. Like, it's very hard to change if you haven't been honest about what you want. So if you just saying stuff like, I want financial freedom and I want to be healthy, and we haven't defined what your definition of healthy is, and we haven't defined what your definition of financial freedom is, and you haven't defined what a happy marriage means to you, if you haven't made it plain, it's going to be very, very hard to do steps 2 and 3 that I'm about to give you. So don't take this for granted. Don't be like, I got it, at least I know what I want. Like, no. Say it out loud. Like, is that what you really want? Are you dreaming as big as you want to dream? Are you giving God something to work with? Are you giving your faith muscle something to lift? Or are you just staying safe and only naming the things that you think are possible because you allowed your mind to go from the what to the how? And then it took your dream out back and shot it because you like, I'm too old for that. That's not possible. It's too late for me. I can't see how that's like, I'm a caregiver. I'm going to travel the world. So I'm not even going to dream of that because I don't see how it's possible. Shame on you. So if your how has been killing your dreams, that's where you need to start. redefining what you want and having the courage to say what you really want and not just what you think is possible. The second question that we need to ask ourselves in order to assess our ready to change is, now that you are honest about what you want, you've been honest about what you want, are you willing to do what it takes? Now, let me be clear about this question. When I say, are you willing to do what it takes? This is not a politically correct answer of course I am, Lisa. I said I want it, so obviously that means I'm willing to do what it takes. That's not what that means at all. Trust me, this is coming from a seasoned coach. I learned, it took me some years to learn, but I learned that desire and willingness are not the same thing. What? I used to really think when people was like waxing deep and talking my ear off about their health goals and their dreams, I thought that automatically meant that they were willing to do what it takes to get it. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. Desire and willingness don't even live on the same block. I don't even know if they're in the same city, to be honest with you. Desire is just identifying what we want, being bold and courageous enough to say what we truly want. But then willingness is identifying, are you willing to do what it takes? Now, are you willing to do what it takes requires something, though. There's a prerequisite, right? Before you can say yay or nay, the prerequisite here, which is what I don't think many of us have explored, is you must be clear on what it takes first. So it's so crazy to be like, I want to lose this weight. I want to get off these 2 medications. You know, these doctors, they playing with me like, no, I'm not going to be on these medications. I'm not going to carry this weight on me. Like, I'm done with this, right? And I'm like, okay, so you crystal clear. You want to lose 50 pounds and get off of your 2 blood pressure medications. Yes, Lisa, that's exactly what I want. Like, it's too much. I done read the side effects. I'm trying to age gracefully. Yes, Lisa, that's exactly what I want. I'm like, okay, are you willing to do what it takes? Yes, Lisa, I'm willing to do what it takes to lose 50 pounds and get off these 2 medications. And I say, okay, before you confirm that you are willing to do what it takes, let me make sure you know what it takes. I'm like, okay, you do realize that we're going to have to do away with your moderation protocol. And we're going to have to go to an abstinence protocol. Whoa, Lisa, wait. You mean I can't have my glass of wine a couple nights a week after a long day? Mm-mm. But wait, Lisa, this is summertime and my family, we got a cruise planned. You mean I ain't going to be able to hit the dessert buffet? Mm-mm. Wait, Lisa, you mean I'm going to have to work out and I can't just do my casual walk to say I worked out, that I'm going to have to start doing inclines and bust a sweat and I'm going to have to do strength. Well, I'm afraid of weights. I like walking in my bike. I just want to do what it's going to require a little more than that. Wait, Lisa, you telling me I got to do away with my morning coffee and drink 25 ounces of water within the first 30 minutes of waking and then drink half of my healthy body weight and ounces of water throughout the day? And I got to have at least 2 servings of plants and at least 1 cup of berries and at least 30 grams of fiber a day if I want to get off the blood pressure. That's what it takes. You mean to tell me I'm going to have to work on healing from my imposter syndrome so that I can stop turning to food when every time I don't feel like enough? That's what it takes. So now I'm going to ask you again, are you willing to do what it takes? Because most of you guys I want this, I'm willing, but I'm like, well, let me just make sure you understand. So before you say, yes, I'm willing to do what it takes to change, to transform, you have to know what it takes. Willingness is not just a politically correct, passive, yes, sure, I'm all in, let's get it. No. You have to seek out a subject matter expert or professional who has done what you're trying to do or who has helped people do what you're trying to do. And they are crystal clear on what it takes. And you have to get informed on what it takes before you run all through these streets talking all our ear off, talking about you ready, you about to get it. The summer body, right? Like before you just say, yep, Lisa, I want to be a coach like you. I want to be a speaker like you. I want to transform lives. I got a story that I think is meant for the stage. I'm going to be like, oh, okay. So you willing to go on social media every day? You willing to go live and talk to the camera, directly to the camera, even when nobody's on? Are you willing to read comments where people are disagreeing with you and insulting you, perfect strangers? Are you willing to do speaking engagements and bomb on stage in front of real people until you get good? Are you willing to be transparent about the things you've struggled with and be transparent about people and things that have hurt you so that people can resonate with your story and see themselves in you? Are you willing to sit down and create a curriculum or a framework for people to learn from so that you're not just telling your story, but you're not giving them anything that they can do? Are you willing to go in a lab and turn off all your devices and miss your shows? And are you willing to say no to going out with friends every now and then? And are you willing to miss some important dates because you got to choose work and as opposed to socialization? Like, are you willing to do that? Because before you tell me you want this business that transforms other people's lives, and before you tell me that you want to be a speaker, and before you tell me you want to be a coach, and before you tell me that you want financial independence and you sick of somebody else making your schedule and you want time freedom and geographic freedom and financial freedom, and before you tell me all that, do you know what it takes? See, some of us agree too fast that we willing to do it. But then when I tell you, oh, okay, I need you to go pick a platform and I need you to go live on that platform every week for 5 years straight. Are you willing to do what it takes? When I tell you, okay, you're going to have to get out of your lack mindset and actually start charging. You got receipts now. People should be paying you for this. When I tell you that ain't no $50, that ain't no $200 offer. When I tell you, you got to fix your mouth to tell somebody you charge thousands of dollars. Do you have what it takes? I'm just saying, are you willing to do it? So number 2, the second question is, are you willing to do what it takes? But before you can say yes, have you explored and researched what your goal truly requires? Because part of the reason you may not be there yet is because you're assuming that you can make moderate adjustments and still get the goal. But the thing that you want requires more than just a moderate tweak. It requires a little bit of radicalization. It requires saying no to some. I remember last year, just to show God, I was so serious about the financial freedom that I want. I spent the entire 2024. I said, God, I'm not buying one article of clothing this year. Not one. I didn't shop not one. Do you know how hard it was to wear the same things over and over again for 365 days? For the entire year of 2024, it was just a personal thing. It wasn't because I spent so much money on clothes that I thought it was going to increase my net worth by not buying clothes. It was, what's one thing I could just sacrifice to show God, like, I'm willing to do? Like, if you tell me to shut all this down because this is what it takes right now to get what you want later. I was just trying to think of something that came to me, like, don't do no shopping this year. None. Like, I didn't buy one article of clothing, not a jacket, not a t-shirt, nothing. Y'all, not a pair of jeans, no leggings, nothing. Not a sock in the whole year of 2024. Lord, I was so happy to get back into Zara this year, honey. I was like, Mama need a few things. But that was my sacrifice. I'm like, I just want to show God that, like, I'm willing to give up something that I enjoy. Like, I probably shop once every couple of months. Like, I'm not a huge shopper like that. But it is, I like looking cute. Like, I like having a little swag, having a little swag about myself. And baby Zara, hate to see me coming this year. But like, it was my thing. Like, I wanted to sacrifice something. Like, I want to show him I'm going to do what it takes. Like, I'm not married to anything that goes against what's required to get the goal. Right. And so, are you willing to do what it takes? But before you can say yes, you have to know what it takes. What type of sacrifices does your financial goal take? What type of sacrifices does your health goal require? What type of sacrifices does your relationship goal require? Do you have to leave a current relationship to eventually get the partner that you really want? And how difficult is that? Right? Do you need to be alone for a while? And maybe you've never been alone and you don't like the idea of being alone. Does being alone feel like failure to you? But are you willing to do what it takes? So that, are you willing to do what it takes? Like, if you talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I left an unhealthy marriage and then I had to be alone just to heal for 2 years before I even started dating again. Are you willing to do that? Like, it's some things you got to think about. So stop saying, yes, I'm willing to do what it takes to get a healthy partner. I'm willing to do what it takes, to run my own business and have that type of freedom. But then you hear what it takes and you like, whoa, oh, that means I got to work through my lack mindset. That means I have to work through my imposter syndrome. That means I have to work through my stage fright. Okay, so are you willing to do what it takes? That's number 2. And then here's the last one. And just like that, it's a cliffhanger. That concludes part 1 of this episode, How to Tell If You're Ready for a Change. Join me back here for part 2. These episodes have been getting longer and longer as I've been getting gooder and gooder. I just love revealing and teaching all these frameworks that I've been teaching in programs for years and sharing them with you guys. And so we're going to let you work on those first couple, and then I'll reveal the next indicator of whether or not you're ready for change next week in part 2. We'll see you back here.
You tuned in today because, like me, you refuse to let your good become the enemy of your great. You're not settling for good health when optimal is well within reach. If you're ready to go from good to great, visit lisaangelsmith.com to learn more about our plant-based health coaching program, Farm to Table, and our plant-based business accelerator and coaching certification. But before you go, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast. Until next time, remember, radical obedience is still undefeated. Stay obedient.